In this episode of Locked On Capitals, your Washington Capitals take down the Calgary Flames 5-4, and it was a milestone night for Alex Ovechkin as he ties Jaromir Jagr, and it's also a milestone for Ovi and Backy as they play 1,000 games together. We'll talk about all of that and more next on Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into Locked On Capitals. My name is Dan Homey, and thank you for joining me today. This podcast is available on all the major platforms, so when you're using your podcatcher of choice, make sure and hit that follow or subscribe button. And thank you for making us your first listen or watch of the day. Well, the Washington Capitals continue in their winning ways by taking down the Calgary Flames 5-4. This was a game that they trailed primarily the entire game, and they tied it and then got the lead in the third. They got to keep this going. Can you believe it? This Capitals team that struggled so much last week is just steamrolling these teams, and they're taking down some really big opponents. If you remember last week, they took down the Hurricanes, and tonight they took down the Calgary Flames. Both of those teams are in the top of their division. So these are a statement win for the Washington Capitals. Make no mistake about it. This isn't like they're winning against teams that are cellar dwellers. These are big name teams. And it was a big name for Alex Ovechkin as he ties Jaromir Jagr by getting number 766 and nearly got another goal that would have surpassed him on an empty netter there. So ahead of him is Gordie Howe at 801 and Wayne Gretzky at 894. So this team is just humming right along, and Alex Ovechkin is humming right along. So in this episode, we're going to recap a little bit of the game, and then we're going to talk about the trade deadline. I hear rumblings about Claude Giroux. I hear rumblings about Marc-Andre Fleury, and I also hear rumblings about someone that you will all know really well, Braden Holtby. Are any of those players going to be coming to the district? We will talk about that coming up. And also, we are going to be talking about another former Cap, Jakub Vrana, who is making his return tonight to the Red Wings. Mantha and Vrana suffered similar shoulder injuries, and they both returned around the same time. Is that coincidental or what? All right, so get to the game tonight. Like I say, the Washington Capitals won 5-4, and this was a statement win as they take down the Calgary Flames, one of the hottest teams in the NHL. So the game started with a holding penalty from Jensen, and I'm thinking to myself, is this how we're going to start this thing right now with a penalty? And then Calgary goes on the power play, but they're 0 for 1. They don't score, so that's good. I think that the Capitals were really trying to zero in and keep on top of this team that has so much firepower. And let me be clear here, the Flames threw way more at the Capitals than they could almost handle, but the Capitals overcame and they win that game. Mantha nearly scores on Vladar earlier in the game, and Vladar, as you know, is one of the tandem that is on the Calgary Flames, and they are stacked in the goaltender department. It was just, I think the Capitals, to be honest, got lucky that they were facing Vladar, not Markstrom. Markstrom, who is going to be a candidate for the Vezina Trophy this year. So I think in a certain regard, the Capitals got lucky that they were facing Vladar. And then there was just that goal that got called back. But this Capitals team was hungry the entire game, and they just showed it. And it was depth scoring. And they had, like I say, they had goals from Shiri, Ovi, Mantha, and Dowd. And, everything is just going so well for this Capitals team. Now you almost kind of have to pinch yourself, don't you? I mean, like I say, last week we were talking about doom and gloom and how is this team going to do in the playoffs? Well, if tonight was any indicator on how well this team is going to play, I think that, put all those notions to rest that this team is not built for the playoffs. They far exceeded my expectations tonight. And I know it was close, and I know that they were coming from behind, but that's what makes it a statement win. They came from behind and they won the game. With that empty netter that they got there, if they wouldn't have got that, it would have been a tie game. And who knows what the outcome of the game would have been. But nonetheless, the Capitals can move along and be happy and rest well tonight, knowing they got a win against a really big name team, the top of the Pacific Division. And they got to keep going with it. They don't have any time to take their feet off the gas, because tonight, they are going to be playing the Edmonton Oilers, who are another great team. So the Caps look to make it 4 in a row. And let's hope they can do it. I think they really can. I mean, like I say, when you win, it's kind of like a snowball rolling down the hill. You get that confidence and you get that swagger. And I think that the Capitals are poising themselves for a great things in the playoffs. And let's hope that they can keep going with that there. Like I said, in the game, the Flames threw everything they had at the Capitals, and it was really kind of difficult for them to overcome at times. But the Capitals overcame, and they get a really big statement win. Like I say, it's just great to be around this team and just to watch the games. It's a joy. For the longest time, it was just kind of a bummer, to be honest with you. But the Caps, like I say, they look to build on that win tonight. And we'll talk more about that after the break. All right, after the break, we're going to talk about the trade deadline. It's looming. It's on the 21st. And what do you think the Capitals are going to do? Do you think they're going to stay with what they have in net? I've heard rumblings about Marc-Andre Fleury. I've heard Braden Holtby. There's a lot of names out there, most notably goaltending. People feel like the Capitals need to get, and they need to address at the trade deadline. If they're going to make a push and they're going to go far in the playoffs or the Stanley Cup, they need to address goaltending. So we'll talk about that. And it was also a big night for one former Cap who is going to finally be able to rejoin his team. So I'll cover on that. And then also in the final segment, I'm going to talk about two Capitals who have spent so much time together and have quite a history. So you're going to want to stick around for that. But first, Built Bar. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my New Year's resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors: yummy cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. They're so good. These are going to be your new favorite. So if you want to make and keep good on your New Year's resolution, I mean, there's just so much junk food out there nowadays. There's fast food and candy. It's really hard to eat good. That's why you need Built Bar. Go to built.com. Use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Thank you, Built. So in this segment, what we're going to talk about, like I say, is a former Cap who has now moved on to the Red Wings. And then there's a Cap that we got from the Red Wings that is now playing. And who I'm talking about is Jakub Vrana, or Jakub Vrana, depending on how you say his name. I've heard different things. And I think he said what he told Beninati was, it's fine if you call me Jacob because I'm in America now. But first, thank you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen. For your next listen, check out Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So, like I said, Jakub Vrana is making his return. Former Capital, as you remember, he was on the team when they won the Stanley Cup. So he kind of holds a fond place with the Capitals, I think. And I know there were a lot of Capitals fans out there that were upset to see him leave, to be honest. I was too. It just seems like he was kind of hot and cold. You never really knew what you were going to get out of Jakub Vrana, but I'm really glad that he was able to get better from his injury, both him and Mantha. Mantha was the one that we got from the Red Wings, and it's interesting that they both suffered shoulder injuries. So Vrana and Mantha were traded for each other last season. Both needed shoulder surgery this season. Both returned within 5 days of each other. So isn't that kind of interesting? You know, one to the Red Wings, one from the Red Wings to the Capitals, and they both suffered similar injuries. So it's interesting that they're both able to come back roughly around the same timetable. And I heard them talk about that in the last Capitals game, that normally an injury of that nature, you're normally out for a longer period of time. So it just kind of shows you the advances that are being made in medicine. And it's good news. I'm glad that Verana returns. I'm happy for the player. It doesn't just have to be that he's not with the Capitals, but I'm happy for Jacob Verana. And I'm also happy to have Mantha back in the lineup because, I mean, like I say, he's another one that provides that big body out there. And that's what the Capitals need. Mantha's not necessarily an intimidator, but you're going to have a hard time budging that guy. And one of the things I'll miss about Verana was his wheels. He was one of the fastest skaters on ice. And just good things going forward. So good on Verana, and I hope nothing but the best for him, and of course Mantha. So in other news here, it is reported it was a possibility back in October, but have been able to confirm the NHL is bringing back the reverse retro jersey program next season. So that is great news. I know that there's some people that have mixed thoughts on those jerseys, especially the blue ones that they're wearing at home now with the W on them. And it just seems like people were saying those are bad luck jerseys. How come they're not rocking the red more at home this year? So, but the reverse retros are coming back, and I heard there's going to be different ones to choose from, or the teams can pick from different ones. So it'll be interesting to see which ones they pick. But if you're a fan of jerseys, I got a couple of them myself. It's kind of nice to add some different ones to what you have at home. So moving on here with the Capitals, as we move closer and closer to the trade deadline, you hear about different teams scouting out different farm teams. The AHL Hershey. It is said that the Flyers brass was at the Hershey game. Flyers front office to have 3 people at Lehigh Valley Hershey AHL game tonight. As Jeff Merrick mentioned over the weekend, Flyers had front office presence at the AHL game versus Charlotte. Members of Flyers organization were at recent Hartford game, 4 Flyers staff at a recent Springfield game. So I think, that's that time of year, especially teams that are trying to rebuild. I don't know if you guys saw that, but the Flyers are just having a horrible luck. And I saw footage or a camera. They took a picture of the stands and how many people were at the Flyers game. And it was in the first period, and it was pretty much empty seats all over the place. So it definitely seems like a lot of the Flyers have kind of given up on the team already. I think that is, what the Flyers are looking to do here. They're looking to move towards the future. As you heard, Claude Giroux is probably most likely going to be moving on, and we'll talk about the trade deadline. There's some rumors swirling out there that where is Claude Giroux going to end up? He was the the captain of that team for some time, and where might he end up? It's going to be interesting to see. I think that he's getting a bit older there. But I think that he still has a place in the NHL and maybe on the Capitals. Who knows? The trade deadline is one of those kind of crazy things, isn't it? Where you think, they're going to get a goaltender, they're going to get this guy. Oftentimes, it's not the way it turns out. So it'll just be interesting to see. I'm kind of looking forward to the trade deadline, and Locked On has you covered. So Locked On Capitals, I will have any news about the Capitals, but just keep it tuned to Locked On, and we got you covered on all the different NHL channels out there. So any breaking news, we got you covered. It'll be interesting to see what the Capitals end up doing. Like I mentioned earlier, they really got to get that solid number 2 netminder. I think Vitek Vanacek has that sewn up. He is going to be the number 1 netminder going into the playoffs, barring any injury, of course. And I think that honestly, if they can't find someone, and not, sell the farm to get him, I think you go with Zach Fucale. I mean, unless Ilya Samsonov can really refocus his game, I think that you got to go with Fucale. Now, I think that you could probably send Samsonov down to AHL Hershey and see what kind of luck he has down there and get him some starts down there and see if he can play better. I mean, like I say, he's had some flashes of greatness this year, but he's had a hard time stringing together any consistent wins. And I think that, if he could go down there and get some of his confidence back, I think that would help out a lot there. So In all transparency, I'm kind of recording this podcast tonight in two different parts. This part, I'm recording before the game, and then I will have a game recap, but just based on how my schedule is, that is how I'm going to have to do it tonight. So I'm just going to kind of have to mesh it together. So, as you know, the Capitals are playing the Flames tonight, and they have quite a history. Overall, they are 41, 43, and 13 against Calgary. And the last meeting, they lost to the Flames 4-3. So, like I say, the Capitals have got to be ready for this game. The Calgary Flames are number one in the Pacific. And you know that they're not just gonna to lay over and play dead for the Capitals. I mean, they got a lot of offensive power out there, but they also have some bigger bodies out there. They play kind of more that old school hockey. So if you look at the NHL, a lot of it nowadays is it's going younger and faster. Well, the Flames seem to be kind of almost a hybrid of that, where they got the speed, they got the goal scorers out there, but they still kind of got that snarl out there too. So I think that Wilson and Hathaway and guys like that, they're going to have to up their game. They're going to have to up their physical game if they want to take down this Flames team tonight. And like I say, I'll recap the game later. It's just how I'm having to do it tonight. So I mean, the Capitals, they have got to be ready about for that game tonight. Tonight's game against the Calgary Flames will mark the 1,000th game with both Alex Ovechkin and Nick Backstrom in the lineup. They will become the first set of Caps teammates to play 1,000 games. And, that is going to be some big news, and I'll cover that in the last segment here. But it's going to be a big game all around, and it's going to be one that you're going to want to watch. And as you listen to this Wednesday morning, you're going to say, hey, I already listened to it, or I already watched it. But it's going to be a great game. And like I say, I think that the Capitals, if they can just keep building on what they have, and they have 2 wins in a row. They had that the big win out there against the Kraken, and I think that that was kind of a big morale booster for the team. So I think that they're going to be all right out there. I just think that they kind of have to batten down the hatches, and they got to be ready for what they're going to throw at them. So I'm going to touch on here a little bit is the trade deadline. As you know, like I said, it's coming up on the 21st here, and what is coming up. Well, who are the Capitals going to end up getting ultimately? And that is the question. So, like we talked about in net, who are the Capitals going to have in net? And the biggest name out there linked to the Capitals, according to Bleacher Report, is Andre Fleury to the Capitals. I got to say, I don't think that's going to happen, since Andre Fleury has rebuffed the Capitals already twice. So I just really don't see that happening. But I mean, I think that, anything is possible on the trade deadline. A lot of times these players, if they hold the cards close to their vest, and I think that McClellan has said that he doesn't plan on making any big moves on the trade deadline, but you never know. I don't think that he would let us know if he was, but I kind of tend to think that I don't think that Fleury's going to come to the Caps. But here's what the Bleacher Report said: the Washington Capitals hold the second wild card berth in the Eastern Conference with 69 points, despite concerns about the recent play of goaltenders Ilya Samsonov and Vitek Vanacek. On February 24th, NHL.com's Dan Rosen suggested they might be interested in Chicago Blackhawks' Marc-Andre Fleury if they doubt their current tandem can carry them through a deep playoff run. Fleury could address that issue for the Capitals. However, Daily Faceoff's Frank Severali reported the Capitals made a full-court press to acquire the 37-year-old netminder, but he said it doesn't appear as though it's going to happen. That's kind of what I was talking about. I would be surprised if it happens. But, like I say, anything is possible. Perhaps the Capitals were on the Fleury's 10-team no-trade list. If they weren't, the cost of taking on the netminder and his $7 million cap hit might have been too difficult for the Capitals to pull off with their limited salary cap space. Maybe the Blackhawks' asking price was too steep. And I think that, more than that, I think that there's just such a history between Marc-Andre Fleury and the Capitals. If you can recall, Marc-Andre Fleury played on the Penguins for a long time. And, there's that history going back and forth where there was some, that I would have to say that the Capitals and the Penguins, those are the biggest rivals out there. I mean, there's no other bigger rival for the Capitals than the Penguins. And so there's that history there. And I think that, there's some bad blood there. And then, of course, Marc-Andre Fleury was on the Golden Knights when the Capitals played them in the Stanley Cup. the Capitals ended up winning the Stanley Cup. So I don't think that he really wants to come to the Capitals. I'm not really sure about what his reason is for that, but if I was going to speculate, that's what I would say it is. But what if the Capitals circle back before the trade deadline and strike a deal with Fleury's blessing? His addition would provide the stability and veteran playoff experience they're currently lacking in the crease. And that's true. I mean, I would say that Vanacek and Marc-Andre Fleury would make a great tandem. However, you're coming up under that situation that I was talking about that I don't really like to see the Capitals in, and that's a rental. I think that, if the Capitals pick up Andre Fleury, it's going to be just that. It's going to be one of those rental situations, and I don't think that the Capitals want to tread those waters because then, you're kind of getting into that situation that McClellan talked about before. And what is that situation? It's trading away futures. It's kicking the can down the road for, trying to win now. I know the Capitals are in a win now mode. I heard the mantra, you got Ovechkin and Backstrom and Oshie and Carlson in this nucleus. They want to make the big push right now. And I get that. And I still think they can make that push. But what you don't want to have happen is them sell off all their future players for a win now mode. Let's be honest, the Capitals have strung together 2 wins. And I really like to think that they can make a push and win a Stanley Cup. But I'm just kind of being realistic here as well with this current lineup. Are they going to win the cup? Perhaps, but I don't want to give up all the farm, and top draft picks and whoever else just for a maybe this year. And I think that that's what McClellan's thought process was there, is that he just doesn't want to, dismantle this team or AHL or the ECHL team for a possibility. So I think that they have to be cautious in dealing with things of this matter. So with Fleury guarding the net, the Capitals could rise higher up the Metro division standings and perhaps even secure home ice advantage for the opening round. He could also improve their chances for a deep playoff run. In return, the Capitals could offer Vanacek to Chicago. Wow. If they still consider Samsonov a future starter who could benefit from Fleury's presence, for example. And this article just doesn't seem like it's aging too well, does it? It was listed recently, but Vanacek to Chicago and have Samsonov be number 1. Obviously, that this is someone that is not familiar with the Capitals organization. I really don't think that's going to happen. I mean, maybe a reversal of that, maybe Samsonov to the Blackhawks, but I don't know if the Blackhawks would be game for that. So that's what I'm talking about this time of year. People are spitballing and speculating on who's going to go where. If I could see one goaltender coming back, I could see Holtby coming back, perhaps, if the Dallas Stars are willing to give him up. So, that's what I'm saying there. I think that they also need a depth defenseman, and I think that they could use some depth in scoring as well. I don't know if that's going to happen, however, but I guess time will tell. But like I said, Locked On has got you covered. And if anything like that does transpire, I will let you know. All right. After the break here, we're going to talk about 2 Capitals who have a big history together. And I think you're going to recognize their names. One from them is Russia and one is from Sweden. We'll talk about that after the break. All right, welcome back. So in this last segment, we are going to talk about those 2 players that I mentioned, and I don't think it's really a mystery. If you've been paying attention, we're talking about Alex Ovechkin, and we are talking about Nick Backstrom. Such a history there. The centerman, who is a bit quiet, and then you have the forward and Alex Ovechkin, which is a bit over the top, but they make that work. And it's just that Nick Backstrom has that scoring touch. He feeds those passes to Ovechkin in the left dot, and he slams them home. That's his office. We've seen it 100 times. So that's just kind of celebrating their duo. They have 1,000 games together. Nearly 16 years ago, one of the NHL's all-time greatest duos was born. Looking back at 1,000 games together for Alex Ovechkin and Nick Backstrom, on June 24th, 2006, Ovechkin joined then general manager George McPhee on stage at the draft and announced the Capitals selection with the 4th overall pick. The organization has been fortunate to have 2 character people and high-skilled people that complement each other as well as they do. Capitals GM Brian McClellan said, personality-wise, on and off ice, their skill sets are a perfect match for each other, and they just gel so well together. If you watch it, even if you're not a fan of the Caps, if you're listening to this and you're not a Caps fan, you kind of know the Backstrom Ovi thing. The right kind of personalities, former teammate Mike Knuble said. You have kind of a 1 and 2 that mesh together. when you're both superstars, sometimes the locker room can be so big to handle personalities. That's where they mesh together, and good for them. They realized, hey, we work together and we're both going to have great careers. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that they realize that pretty quickly. And I think that they just both get along that well together. I think that they complement each other in that way. Like I say, Ovechkin's kind of more of the social extrovert, and I think that Backstrom's more of an introvert. And, Backstrom eats a steady diet of humble pie. I mean, you can just heap on all the praise because it could be speculated how great of Ovechkin would he be right now if he didn't have Nick Backstrom as his right-hand man. They're two of the top players in the game, Capitals head coach Peter Laviolette said. They have been for a long time. And so one of them has a skill set to make plays that is one of the best in the league, and the other one has the ability to deliver the puck to the net. I think we know who we're talking about there. He's arguably the best in the league. It's a good combination with a tandem. Everybody knows his skill on ice is tremendous, Ovechkin said. The vision plays that he can make, he makes different players better than they are even. And I mean, we can't forget that Backstrom is still a pretty good goal scorer as well. I mean, he's a centerman. So, I mean, obviously he likes to dish it off to the forwards that are playing around him. But I think that the Backstrom has a good scoring touch as well. Everybody knows his skill is tremendous, Ovechkin said. I've never seen a player that's so hungry for things, Backstrom said of Ovechkin. Just scoring goals, hitting, making plays. I think he's not that vocal in the locker room, but he shows out there on ice when O's on. There's no one stopping him, and the rest of the team just follows him. So I think he's got that energy to feed off everyone else on the team, Backstrom said. I've been fortunate enough to be playing with him for so many years and been watching closely. It's been great. They're going to be tied together forever, and rightfully so, Knuble said. They both would have been great players on their own, but to have them together, they both benefited, and it's great that nobody got too big for the other guy, and they were smart enough to, through the years, to work together. It produced one of the best tandems in NHL's history, and I don't think you can argue with that. I think they'll probably retire, or it'll be their last season with the Capitals when one decides to retire. I've heard it rumored that Ovechkin wants to play one of his final seasons um, in Russia, and I guess that remains to be seen what happens there. I'm not entirely sure if that will happen, but that is what is speculated anyway. So that is your Locked On Capitals podcast for tonight. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Host Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So kind of an unconventional Locked On Caps podcast tonight. I'm kind of having to do this after part, and then after the game, I'm going to record that and I'm going to mesh it together, and hopefully it comes together pretty seamless. I want to thank you for listening and or watching on YouTube, because if it wasn't for you people watching out there, there wouldn't be this podcast. So thank you for taking approximately 30 minutes every day on your morning commute or wherever it is to listen to Locked On Capitals. It means a lot. And I will talk to you guys again tomorrow. Thank you for listening.